So this video is going to be about how you can get loot as a healer in Throne of Liberty. As many of you know, healer struggles a lot in this game because you gotta play, you're playing a healing class, and most of the rewards on this game are based on DPS. So healers and tanks usually struggle, but I would just say honestly that tanks struggle more than healers because healers have some leeway on a lot of things. So the first thing you gotta know is there's no really ways. There's like the game actually doesn't have mechanics that favor healers getting loot. It's just how it is for field bosses and arc bosses and things like that. You're always gonna have the lower rate. So what I would recommend is like how you can figure out ways to get more loot. The first thing you should do is, of course, instead of playing healer on field bosses and arc bosses, is try to swap your healer build for a DPS. Even if you don't have another weapon, try to make a setup with, like, I don't know if you're playing Seeker with your one bow or one orb, or maybe even a variation of orb bow, but try to make a conversion on that for a setup for solo bossing. You're probably gonna be using that for all field bosses, for all the arc bosses, as well for the secret dungeons. Uh, on the start, it might be hard to do nightmare or like even the hard difficulty. So personally, on my healer, I always do on the normal difficulty just to do it faster. But be aware that by end game, when you get your healer you get it stronger with like proper gear that you can swap for PvE. You can like do decent damage with curses if you're using the one, and cover the damage with the extra damage with the bow slash the orb, right? You can do the nightmare, but it is much lower than the DPS classes, and there's no way around it. Okay, so that's the first thing I would recommend is first making an alternative spec for like healer and an alternative spec for DPS. But the biggest recommendation would be start building another weapon, even if you don't have it fully built. For example, you can check here, I have my DPS build, which is not the best example, but you can see I don't have a proper expo, I don't have a proper orb fully leveled yet, and I don't need it, but just by using a combination that is on the meta and have the skills leveled, I can like do decent compared to if I was using another class. So what I'm trying to say is try to have swaps. For example, if you're playing one orb, try to swap for the crossbow orb, or try to play one staff or one bow. Oh, sorry, not one bow, my bad. Or try to do yeah, one staff I think would be my recommendation. Either one staff or X-bow orb would be ideal, or staff orb. That's the combination I was looking for. If you're using bow one, you can do one X bow for Fury. You can do bow staff or one staff as well. All of those gonna work, and it's gonna be way better than the healing class that you're running. So why you never want to run healer on any field in Arc Boss is because the contribution you get from tanking and healing is so insignificant compared to the contribution you get from damaging the bosses that you always want to be playing DPS even if you're a main healer. So this is the first way that you can figure out by yourself. But if you want to keep playing healer, then there are a few options you can explore. The first option you can explore is by finding a party, find people that you can always play together, find a static party. So always the same tank, always the same DPSs, maybe an alternative healer with you, find people to do things together during your playtime. And what you can do with those people, you can plan with them. So whenever you get a drop from field bosses and arc bosses, you just split the lucent that you get from the drop, or you help each other with the drop. For example, you drop a blood piece, you're gonna give your DPS. You drop something that you might need for your build for as support. He's gonna give that to you for the tank, and vice versa. The best way is just honestly by splitting loot if you're playing casually. You can even do splits on Lucent pretty easily by doing like guilds. If you're in the same guild, it's very easy to manage and split guilds. You can use like blue drops. This is not the best example because I'm a guild by myself, but for example, you can set the managed drops here. You can send to the guild the rare equipment even, which is the blue drops, and you can use the blue drops to separate the lucent that you're gonna give to each person, so you can split the lucent that you get fairly. So that's one way that you can, get some loot, get some lucent as a healer. The other way is not specific to a party, but you can join a guild that has a loot console slash tries to help each other. This way, even as a healer, just by helping the guild, helping your teammates, your guildmates, slowly you're gonna get gear given to you, so you can like gear up and everything. That's what's happening, for example, on my Hyperboost server on NA. There's a loot console, and they give it to the people that are no uh, performing, showing activity, being present in arc bosses and other things, right? Being present in the PvP. So that's one way. But if you don't like to be at the mercy of others, the benefit of the healer when it comes to other things, for example, parties and field ball. Oh, sorry, parties and dungeons is that the healer always have priority for a lot of things. So what a healer can do is a lot of times they can get into parties that other classes will not be able to get. So for example, if you want to get into a raid, a lot of times people are gonna ask for 7,000 gear score, but a healer with much less is gonna be allowed to join if they need a healer. The same goes for the party board if you're looking for trials. For example, it's much easier to get into a really good lobby as a bad healer than the inverse of getting into a good lobby as a DPS is gonna be way harder. So that's one of the benefits. And it's much easier for you to start any of the parties and control the party the way you want by being a healer. So that's one of the benefits that you can use. And this follow through for guilds. Most guilds will lower the bar by a lot to recruit healers and tanks because it's classes that much there are much less players using those classes and even less competitive slash competent ones. That's the truth. Uh, so what happens is they allow a bunch of healers to join. It's much easier to join guilds, and on top of that, it's much easier to get items. There's a lot of guilds. If you care a little bit and do a little bit of PvP, or at least is active during prime time, it's very easy to find guilds that are gonna be giving you extra points, extra DKP. DKP points, in case you're not aware, in case you had not played more competitively or like more actively on a DKP guild, is a system that is external to the game where you gain points from activities. So for example, if you join an arc boss, if you join a field boss, if you're playing a prime time, if you're doing the guild incursion, rift, boom, whatever it is, each activity is given a scheduled point. For example, oh, this is gonna give 5 points, it's gonna give 10 points, you're gonna give 20 points, right? And those points are given, and then by using TLGM, which by the way I have sponsorship in my description if you want for 50% off on the first month. But sorry. On this app, which is the most common one for those guilds that use DKP, you're gonna get those points, and you can use those points to like auction items. So for example, if a guild dropped a field boss or an arc boss item, sometimes for arc bosses items there are different rules, there are more specific ones, but overall it's the same idea. It goes into loot auction, and then there you can gamble your points, you can auction your points to get the item. This way is way more fair for healers, for DPS and tanks. Everyone has the same amount of currency, money, based on their activity, based on their participation, and they can use those points to buy gear from the guild. Sorry. uh, but the benefits of the healer here are gigantic. Oh my god, that word are huge, because the healers usually get the benefit of having more DKP. So a lot of guilds on the start, when you join a guild, might offer like packs of 300, 400. The number doesn't matter that much, because there are some guilds that use like 1, 2, 3, 5 DKP, and there are some guilds that use like DKP on the thousands, because it's a currency that you can decide the values, right? So it's gonna change from guild to guild. But most guilds have either starter packs if you're a healer or tank, or sometimes even DPS, but mostly healer and tanks. They're gonna give you X amount of DKP for joining the guild, so you're gonna get like already a good amount of guild currency that you can use to spend. And a lot of guilds will actually give healers and tanks bonus DKP. That means, for example, if the activity gives 10 points, usually the healer will get like 11 or 12 based on the extra percentage the healer should get. I have seen guilds give upwards to like 30 to 50% to healers when they really need healers. So yeah, be aware that while healers have problems in like the DPS aspect for field boss and guild bosses, if you're playing a more serious guild or like a more structured guild or the one that have DKP system and stuff like that, it gets much easier to get items. So abuse that, that's the way you can get items easier as a healer. I have seen even PvE guilds that use DKP system, so you can try to look for that. And if you cannot find any of that, try to make friends and try to find a static that you can split loot. But that's about it. There's really no other way to, improve your loot chances right now. Those are my tips for you as a healer, how to survive in this game. This is what I used to do on tier 1, and this is what I'm doing right now on Hyperboost. I'm just looking for like solutions to the problem instead of like complaining, because honestly it has been like this for a year. It just changed a little bit, but it was still horrible, and I don't think it's gonna be touched anytime soon. So I hope this helps for you. If you're a new healer, if you're mega lost in the game, if you're frustrated, those are things and ways that you can, figure out to get some gear, get some loot as a healer in the game. See ya.